Greetings, dear ones. It's so good to be with you again. I love to cook. This is in part because, as you can no doubt see, I love to eat. And I especially enjoy my own cooking. I'm not sure why that is, but it's true. I became aware some years ago that part of why I love to cook is because it forces me to be in the moment. When I'm cooking, particularly if I'm sautéing something, I know full well what will happen if I stop paying attention. And so there is a not so subtle spiritual insistence on being present in the moment when I'm cooking. I love it dearly. I remember my mother, who has been dead for many years now, also really loved to cook. I never really understood the degree to which that had to do with her tendency to be spread too thinly, to multitask, to try to do too many things at the same time. And she, like I think, began to understand that cooking was a good way to come into the moment. I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately because in these days of COVID and of the uprising, it's often very difficult for me to be present in the moment. I'm worried about the future. I think we all are. I think we'd be foolish not to be. And yet the spiritual insistence that we find ways to come into the present moment and so to appreciate the world and let its gifts have their way with us is no less important, and perhaps is more important now than it ever has been. When we counsel those who have lost someone they love here at Unity, we don't assure them that they will reunite with their loved one in heaven, though of course we don't really know. But our tendency, I think, and certainly mine, is to believe that we come from a great source, a great sense of reunion or union, and that we return to it, and that individual character, aspects of individual character, or the particulars of personality do not survive this one sweet, all too short life we have to live. And so instead of theorizing about a future life or about some kind of physical immortality, we ask, what are the attributes that your loved one brought into the world that they cared about most and that you most would like to cultivate in your own lives in their honor? Think about that, friends. Think about someone that you've loved and lost, and think about the way they live on in your willingness, your energetic pursuit of what mattered most to them. It's interesting that grief comes up so much for me when I think about cooking. It brings me back to a very lovely poem by Jane Hirshfield, the great American Buddhist poem, about going back to the round of normal activity, and about how that can at first feel like a betrayal, as though you're honoring those you've loved and lost by refusing to return to life at its best. And then you get hungry. And so she wrote this lovely poem, Da Capo, which I'd like to share with you. Take the used up heart like a pebble and throw it far out. Soon there's nothing left. Soon the last ripple exhausts itself in the weeds. Returning home, slice carrots, onions, celery, glaze them in oil before adding the lentils, water, and herbs, then the roasted chestnuts, a little pepper, the salt, finish with goat cheese and parsley. Eat. You may do this, I tell you. It is permitted. Begin again the story of your life. We are, in fact, these days, beginning again the story of our lives. So much of what we had always expected, so much of what we had considered normal, seems in doubt. And yet we still hunger, and yet there is still beauty in the world, there is still flavor to be savored, there are still moments when we can't afford to be distracted. Moments at the stove, moments at the demonstration, moments when we grab hold of this life despite the grief and move forward to new life, to a new story, to new ways of being in the world. Come with me, friends. We're always on our way. Thank you.